This last week or so, I've actually realised something pretty important, or things have crystallised and I've been able to, see the big picture. And what I'm talking about is, I think there's an awful lot of people who are Marxists, or their whole ideology has been influenced by Marxism. And in most cases, they don't even know that. In some cases, they might actually say that they're vehemently against Marxism. But if you actually look at the ideas that they support, they are 100% Marxist. So today, just before I came out, I posted, I can't remember exactly what the phrase was, it's on my community page. And it was basically some sort of lament about kind of all the problems that countries like Britain are suffering from at the moment. And somebody wrote back and said, and this is a direct quote, "Capitalism has led us here." Here meaning this kind of, sorry for my French, this shit show that we're currently all suffering from. So this is like being bitten by a dog and then blaming a cat. So it's kind of my contention that the problems that we're suffering from all stem from one entity, and that entity is the government. Free market capitalism is the antithesis of government. Free market capitalism has got nothing to do with the government. So, Help to Buy, what are we on? We had Help to Buy 1, Help to Buy 2, Help to Buy 3. It's a government scheme, isn't it? And it helped to inflate house prices. So is Help to Buy, is that a problem that comes from, has that got anything to do with capitalism? Or is it more to do with the government? In the UK, the price of electricity and gas is set by the government. Has that got anything to do with free market capitalism? In Britain, propaganda is being passed off as education. Has that got anything to do with free market capitalism? People arriving in the UK on rubber boats are being put up in 4-star hotels and you're paying for it. Is that all the fault of free market capitalism? The government forcing you to take a dangerous drug and then asking you to pay, or not asking, taking your money to pay for it. Has that got anything to do with free market capitalism? Housing benefit has jacked up rent. The more people can pay, the higher landlords will charge. Is housing benefit a problem of capitalism? You not being able to afford to fill up your car with petrol because over half the price of a litre of petrol is excise duty. Don't tell me capitalism has led us here. Sky high house prices because there's a shortage of housing due to restrictive planning laws. Is that the fault of free market capitalism, those planning laws? Rip-off rates of interest on credit cards because the banking market is highly regulated, which restricts competition, which drives up interest rates for borrowers. Is that all down to free market capitalism, or is it down to the government limiting competition by erecting barriers to entry around markets through the use of regulation? It is exasperating. Another thing that drives me mad is this use of this phrase, crony capitalism. Now, crony capitalism has got as much to do with capitalism as a Linda McCartney vegetarian sausage has to do with a real pork sausage. They're completely different things. So the phrase crony capitalism actually describes something completely different to capitalism. That's why it's a phrase that we shouldn't use. What we should use instead is corporatism. So that's the union of state with corporate power. Mussolini called that fascism. So what has led us here isn't capitalism. It's corporatism or fascism. It's a type of technocracy where, yeah, we have some business activities that are privately owned, but they're privately owned in name only. So in practice, it's the government that decides what type of goods will be produced in society and in what quantities, and that's achieved through regulation. So a good example that you can see, I'm just going to step down off here, is see what's happening now with the car market. The state central planners are dictating to private businesses what type of vehicles they'll be producing by whenever it is, 2025, 2030. That is not capitalist, is it? Because under capitalism, it's the consumer that decides what society's scarce resources are going to be used to produce. In this case, it's central planners employed by the government who are telling private businesses what they're going to use their resources to produce. And if they don't do what the state central planners say, the business gets fined, closed down. So this has been used before. This is the type of technocracy that was established in Germany in the 1930s. Most of the German economy under National Socialism was privately owned, but it was privately owned in name only, because it was the state that decided what type of products these privately owned businesses were going to produce. The state regulated those private businesses. Back then, if the owner of a business didn't do what the National Socialist Party said, they'd be sent to a concentration camp. The same would apply for production methods. In a free market, capitalistic society, entrepreneurs decide on the production method. They choose the cheapest method of production, providing it doesn't compromise product quality in a way that the sovereign consumer recognises. We don't have that. What we have instead is the state telling private businesses what production methods they're going to use. Obviously, again, what we're seeing a lot of now is firms being told that they must adopt green methods of production. This is leading to higher prices because these methods of production are more expensive than the ones that they're replacing. So those high prices, it's not capitalism that's created them. So, if you take the example of people being put up in 4-star hotels at your expense, is that the fault of capitalism? Well, the thing is what you've got to understand here is it the hotels themselves that are driving that decision? The answer is no, because the hotels are being paid by the government using money that was stolen from you. So this isn't free market capitalism, because these hotels now only have one customer, which is the state. And that is about as far as you can get from free market capitalism, where the only consumers are millions of sovereign individuals who each make their decision independently of each other. we've got another really horrible, dark, gloomy December day in Finland. Oh, how do you cope living in Finland in the winter time? It must be really terrible. You know, it's like, you know, dark all the time, and it's like really, really horrible. How do you cope? So the upshot of all of this is that capitalism hasn't led us here. What has led us here is the state, is a form of technocracy. What do you actually want to call that technocracy is up to you. But technocracy isn't anything to do with capitalism, so please stop using this two-word phrase of crony capitalism, because crony capitalism has got nothing to do with capitalism at all. Nothing. The other thing as well I'll say is that a lot of these preconceptions, as I said right at the very beginning of the video, come from people whose whole worldview is Marxist, but they don't even know it. And this has just basically come from the fact that at school they were fed a monocultural diet of unadulterated Marxism. They've never been exposed to any other arguments other than Marxism. So, you know, these people, you can identify them because if you say anything about private business, what these guys will quickly say is, or they'll say stuff like private business equals monopoly, equals high prices, equals consumers being exploited. And this is just, well, it's just laughably incorrect, because in a true free market capitalist situation, monopolies are highly, highly unlikely, for the simple reason that if a firm, a sole supplier to a market, if they tried to exploit consumers by raising prices or compromising on product quality, what consumers are going to do is try to look elsewhere. Entrepreneurs will look at this market and they'll say, well, maybe there's a gap in the market here. Maybe there isn't much competition here at the moment, but maybe we should enter this market and be a rival to this business. And that in itself will moderate the behaviour of the firm that's already in the market. And if they don't moderate their behaviour, it's just a matter of time before competition increases and consumers get better prices. What's going to be very interesting here is what's going on now with Arla Foods. So Arla's a big conglomerate. I had some utter clown the other day, like trying to, I can't remember the exact words that were used, was, oh, what about a dominant corporation? You know, they'll always exploit consumers, won't they? And the answer to that is no, they won't, because if they try to do that, they won't stay very big for very long. And this is what's going to happen with Arla. You know, they've tried to screw the consumer over, and what you're going to see is a good chance, I think, that Arla could go bust. And what you're also going to see is a massive switch in consumer spending towards products, dairy products supplied by small independent dairies who use production methods that we like rather than production methods that politicians like, you know, who dance to the tune of people like, you know, Jill Bates. Jill Bates really is your Prime Minister. He's part of the government. It's just the same thing. It's corporatism, right? But that is not free market capitalism. Corporatism isn't free market capitalism. Crony capitalism, I know it's got, the second word is the same, but it's got nothing to do with the real thing. And people who use that phrase, crony capitalism, they're either one of two things. They're either ignorant, or the second thing is that they know what they're doing and they're bad actors. And what they're trying to do, capitalism is a solution. Capitalism is not the problem. And by using this phrase, crony capitalism, what they want people to do is to turn away from the solution. They want to blame the solution for the problem, and we mustn't allow them to do that. So what I'm going to do from time to time is produce some videos that explain some of these arguments that many of you guys, I'm sure, have never been exposed to, as to, first of all, what is true free market capitalism, and then secondly, what are its benefits. Free market capitalism is freedom. Freedom is not being coerced using violence or the threat of it to provide state education, state healthcare, retirement benefits. That's not freedom. That's slavery. And I think also the other thing I would say too is that there's a lot of people out there, even like truthers, awake people, what they want is some sort of technocracy. You know, maybe it's some sort of ethno-nationalist, sort of socialist, you know, where access to the goodies is based on your ethnicity, you know. And what these people are not really that different from Klaus Schwab in that they still believe in technocracy. They want the government to fundamentally organise society. And, you know, like the people back in the 30s, maybe they're okay with private ownership, but they want private ownership to be on the government's terms. They are in favour of the government regulating private business, you know, for the greater social good, for the good of society. That's what they'll say, you know, so the state must tell house builders how many houses to build, how they're going to use their land, what type of houses, they're going to like set the price. And what you end up with is exactly the same technocracy that existed in 1930s Germany. Hell on earth, I would say. So that's all I want to say today, so God bless.